Hello everyone and welcome to this live programme presentation. My name is Patrick Cosgrove and I'm the Student Recruitment Officer here at Mary Immaculate College. In this session we'll be looking at the various primary teaching options available in the college. We'll have Dr. John O'Shea who'll be talking about the Bachelor of Education, Dr. Sarah O'Brien who'll be talking about the Bachelor of Education International, and Dr. Claire Griffin who will be talking about the BEd in Education Psychology. So I'll just hand you over to John now, who will start his presentation on the Bachelor of Education.
Hello everybody, I'm delighted that you're interested in the Bachelor of Education at Mary Immaculate College. My name is John O'Shea, I'm the course leader for the BEd programme, and hopefully over the next few minutes that we have together I can give you a brief overview of what it entails and of what you might expect as a student on the programme. So on the next slide I will detail very quickly the structure of the programme and what you can expect as a student on the programme. So as you can see in the centre of your screen there are 4 spines to the programme, and these 4 spines are designed to take you from being at one side of the desk and to make you confident at being at the other side of the desk, the teacher side of the desk, by the time you get to year 4. So you see there learner, teacher, researcher and leader. There's very much a focus on the initial stages of the programme on many college-based campus modules where you begin to understand what life is like as a learner, someone who's becoming a teacher. And as you go through the programme, then more and more time is spent in classrooms, more and more time is spent on projects and essays of your choice, so that you eventually leave Mary Immaculate College as a leader in a particular field. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means in a little while. At all stages of the course, there are both on-campus and off-campus activities, including school placement, for example, which happens every year of the programme. So in first year, you can expect to be in a middle class, so from 1st to 4th. In second year, you can expect to be in a senior class in 5th and 6th. And in final year and 4th year, you can expect to be in both an alternative setting and also an infant setting. So you can see around the screen there's different terminology associated with life at 3rd level, but we take an easy approach to introducing you to 3rd level, and particularly through a module in 1st year called Becoming a Student Teacher, where it looks at transitioning you from being a 2nd level student to a 3rd level student, and all of the issues that you might encounter. So as a small institution, we take pride in our ability to do that. So I think what would make sense for me to do was to talk about year 1 of the programme and what you could expect to study as a student. So what are our current first years doing? So on the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about what our current first years are doing. And obviously, these are not normal times, and our current first years are online. There was an expectation before semester started that we'd be on campus, but unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we are not on campus. So all of this is occurring online at the moment. But in normal times, you could expect to be on campus for this semester. So what is it like to be a student here today? So what you see on screen in front of you are the modules that a first year student engages with. And I'll talk a little bit about Language and Literacy 1, on Gaeilge agus Mun na Gaeilge, and STEM 1, Introduction to Mathematics and its teaching first. So everybody, and you're not too far removed from primary schools yourself, everybody knows that a primary school teacher teaches all curricular areas. So therefore, we explore in detail the teaching of the particular areas. So it's not your knowledge of the areas that are important, and more so the teaching of the areas. So the teaching of English, the teaching of Irish, the teaching of mathematics in this term, but also across other terms, in addition with, which are obviously not on screen, but in other semesters, PE and SPHE and history and geography and science and so on. So we explore the teaching of the different subject areas. And you can see those there in the middle of your screen, Language and Literacy, on Gaeilge agus Mun na Gaeilge, and Introduction to Maths and its teaching. At the top of your screen, technology and education methodology. That's designed around exploring issues around what is the best tech used to support teaching and learning in primary schools today, classroom management, organisation, questioning, explanations, how to structure good questions, how to structure good explanations, how to organise your classroom effectively. So an introduction to that, and obviously over the course of the programme, all of these areas are covered at different times. But again, it's just to prepare you for your initial foray into the classroom, which would happen in the second semester, so from January to May of your first year. In the middle of the screen there, you see the module Becoming a Student Teacher, and I spoke a little bit about that a minute ago. And that's, again, you know, we do understand the importance of exploring the issues that individuals may have in going from second level to third level. So even issues like academic writing, and you know, writing essays and assignments and projects at third level is different to that at second level. So that module is there to help in that regard. In the final couple of rows there at the bottom of your screen, we explore issues outside of curriculum as well. So it's really important to understand where we've come from, why we do what we do in relation to education in Ireland, understanding the philosophy of education, the sociology of education, the history of education. We're very proud of that in this country. We have a great background in the foundation subjects in this country, and all degree programs in teacher education place a great emphasis on the likes of philosophy, history, and sociology. So therefore, much time is spent exploring those issues across the program as well. And also psychology is important. Why we do what we do and the way we do it, and organization and management and so on, and how children learn. All of that's explored. And you begin to explore that in modules such as developmental psychology in first year. And finally, then we prepare you there for your first placement in semester one. So currently our students are looking at things like children first guidelines and issues around guidelines for working with students in schools and interacting with as professionals in schools and so on before they actually go to schools for the first time, which will happen next semester in semester two. So those are the type of subjects that you can expect to study in year one, and anyone who has, you know, perhaps a sibling in college or has been through college before will probably recognize what I'm talking about there. But they are the kind of things that you can expect to study in the first semester of the program. Moving on then to the next slide, what do the years ahead look like? So it is a busy program. It is a busy program because it is a professional qualification. So immediately upon graduation, you are entitled to be employed in a primary school in a permanent capacity in Ireland. So therefore, you can expect to be busy across all 4 years of the program. So there, in total, approximately 55 units of study between placement and lectures and projects and so on. And so it does, from the get-go, people are busy and students engaged in the Bachelor of Education program. There is choice built into the program though. So therefore, you may have an interest, for example, in sport or music or drama or art, or even a subject that you're currently studying at second level. You might be interested in further study of mathematics or of German, for example, or French or history. We have built into the program a choice for you so that you can graduate with a degree and a specialism of your choice. Okay, and that specialism, as I said, it may be in education or the liberal arts. Obviously, we're a college of two faculties in education and arts, and therefore we can offer a wide degree of choice, and we do offer that within the program. So to that end, we have built in choices for you into the program so that you can design and pursue a program that interests you. On the next slide then, it details the possibilities in relation to these choices. So on the left-hand side of your screen there, you'll see the possibilities in education, and the right-hand side, liberal arts. Now, you know, these are not endless lists. We're constantly changing, and depending on resources, we're constantly looking at what we provide and student interest and so on, but you could see what you could specialize in. So in addition to the core program, you could also graduate with, you know, if you're interested maybe in special ed or early childhood or drama or PE or music or RE or visual art or teagasc season along Gaeilge, maybe one of those, or perhaps you like to study more English or mathematics or French or Gaelic or geography or history or media or music, philosophy or theology and religious studies. So there's a wide variety of choice there for you to build into your program. So on the next slide, then, we're going to talk very, very quickly about school placement and what you can expect in relation to school placement. So obviously, it's an important element of the program. It's a core part of the program. And we build 24 weeks into it across 4 years. So obviously, an amount of time is spent on placement in the program. You can expect to spend time in the school close to your home, okay, particularly in the final part of the program. So anyone that knows the current fourth year will realize, that they are currently in a school close to their home and in their local parish or community. And so you will spend time in a variety of different schools, and both perhaps close to the college in Limerick, where you'll be bused and travel is arranged and so on, but also in at time at home. So particularly in first year, in second year, and in fourth year. So 24 weeks over 4 years, and as I said, to start the last year, the final year, the whole semester from September right the way through to December is spent in your home environment. You will engage in observation of teachers and participation in school life, and obviously teaching and so on. And so all school activities, learning activities, class-based activities will be explored by you, so that again you gain as much as possible from the experience of that. So that finally then brings me to my next slide, which looks at the possibilities in relation to study abroad. It is possible for you to study abroad. It is possible for you to go abroad for a semester in the program if you wish. You don't have to. That's in year 3, in the first semester of the program, and we have a variety of various colleges around Europe that you can go to should you wish in the BEd program. But that's all I have to say in the short space of time that I have.
Thank you so much, John. That was brilliant. And you've done a lot of heavy lifting for me there, because quite a few of the pointers that Dr. O'Shea pointed out there will also relate to the BEd International. So thank you very much for laying the groundwork there. So yeah, my name is Dr. Sarah O'Brien, and I'm one of those very lucky people who did their BEd in Mary I many moons ago, but I just travelled after that. I think it was part of that generation of the early millennium when we were exploring, and we were going to Australia and Dubai. And in my case, I went to the United States and to South America, Peru and Argentina, and ended up being in these wildly different classrooms, which was really exciting. But I think it raised all of our awareness of the different approaches that were taken in different communities throughout the world. And you begin to realise how specific we are about education in Ireland, and how strong we are in so many ways, and how much more we have to learn from other cultures and other countries. So I'm really, really excited that the BEd International now exists. It's a new program, and it helps students to grapple with some of these issues and challenges. And in fact, it helps to create further opportunities for Irish primary school teachers to go out to study abroad and to have a sense of what they can expect if they become one of those many Irish primary school teachers who find themselves in Abu Dhabi or Australia, or in my case, Argentina. So that's the background to the program. That's the genesis, and we're just in year 1 now. We welcomed our first cohort of students this year, so it's a really exciting transition for Mary I, and I'm going to give you a sense now of what the program entails. So we can go to the next slide there, please, Martin. So what does BEd International qualify you for? So everything that Dr. O'Shea just said counts for the BEd International. So you will come out at the end of the 4 years with a professional qualification in primary teaching. You also have an academic specialisation in international and comparative education. So effectively, it's like the BEd, but it's sliced through with this really international perspective on education. And we're trying to really encourage you to think comparatively about how our system works in relationship to, or in parallel to, very different educational contexts. So a lot of those electives that you would have in DB Ed actually focus in DB Ed International on comparative education, on things like internationalization, the pros and cons of globalization, internationalization, questions around multilingualism, and how we can teach to be more culturally and linguistically responsive. These are the sort of that's the pathway that you will be taking on DB Ed International. I should have added there that it's not really just a question of you as a teacher going out into the wider world and teaching. As we all know, our classrooms in Ireland are much more multicultural, multinational than they were previously. And this degree also really supports teachers in being able to respond in a very prepared, research-led way to the needs of students who are part of the new Irish communities. So that's what you're looking at in terms of your qualification and your academic specialisation. So this is the conceptual framework that Dr. O'Shea has just gone through. There are additional modules that you'll be taking as part of the DB Ed International. These include, first of all, in year 3, a mandatory study abroad semester. So whereas it's optional for BEd students to go and study abroad, for the BEd International, it is mandatory. So in autumn of year 3, you'll be working with myself and in the international office to think through our international partners and to think about where you want to go and study abroad. That's a really critical part of the program because it allows you to take classes in a national context on education, research methods, and some of those partnerships will allow you to get into international classrooms as well. So, so that's pretty critical. You'll also be taking modules two modules in comparative education. They're in year 3 and year 4, and that's where we really get into the kind of the nuts and bolts of how our approach to education in Ireland compares to approaches, let's say, in Senegal or Peru or New Mexico. And it's really led by working with scholars and research in those areas. And we're always trying to think, okay, what are we doing and what can we do better? And how can these things, you know, kind of interlock to create a better education system in Ireland and indeed abroad. I should say as well, a lot of this curriculum and the approach is fed by our masters and our postgraduate students, many of whom are from Mexico and Brazil, and who really help to amplify our understanding of international education as well. And we really do try to bring in as much as possible experts from sort of the global community into our lectures, so that you're hearing not just from us, but directly from those international contexts. In year 4, you have an international education portfolio module that will really allow you to evaluate and synthesize all of your experiences abroad, and you're going to show how those experiences actually are going to inform your future teaching practice. And in year 4 as well, you're going to be doing your dissertation, and we'd really be encouraging you to look in your dissertation again at the context of international education, to critique some of the things that have happened in international education in the past, and to suggest maybe better pathways forward. So the dissertation is a really great way to, I guess, to deal in a really mature, evaluative way with a lot of the knowledge that you've and ideas that you've encountered in the previous 4 years. Okay, so what does it look like? At the moment, it's a pretty small group. We've got about between 12 and 15 students. So it's definitely its own little family. We're nearly I guess we're kind of like a football team. The interests, as I say, in terms of the modules are in, you know, education in international settings, cultural and linguistic responsive education, which is so important both in Ireland and abroad. We look at concepts like transnationalism and translanguaging because we recognise that we're all much more mobile as human beings now, and we're not as place-bound as we used to be. So how do you deal with classrooms that have quite a lot of transnational flux in them, and how does our education respond to different like politics around, you know, refugees and asylum seekers and so on. A lot of the students who take this course are really, really hungry for that study abroad experience, and that's something that we're already supporting them with, even though they only came in a month ago. Some of the students already know where they want to go, and so we're helping them to think about, setting up those partners. We have a lot of partnerships actually, but it's getting them thinking about what modules they can take in those other universities. So that is obviously, an important, I think, feature of this student cohort is that they really want to travel, and quite a lot of them are very interested in other languages as well, and teaching and learning through other languages. And I should have mentioned this already, there's also an alternative education experience built into the summer of the third year. And there's another opportunity for you there to go out into a teaching setting and in an international context. And we would also be supporting you in doing that. But you're not alone. You will be sharing lots of lectures with the BEd group and the BEd psychology group as well. So while we are a little cohort, we're very much within a larger community of BEd and BEd psych students. So there's a huge amount of overlap there and possibilities to make friendships and all that kind of thing with indeed with all of the other programs in Mary I. Okay, so this is, like Dr. O'Shea was saying there, this is the first semester. So students are taking the same modules as BEd and BEd Psych students at the moment. However, they're also doing these really fun monthly talks. So once the first Friday of every month, we have monthly talks with professionals, scholars, teachers, practitioners from global contexts. And we've kind of arranged this so that there's a focus, there's a kind of a geographical focus. So this year our focus is South America. So in November, we're going to be talking to Dr. William Chavarria, who's from Nicaragua, actually. He's a former student of mine. He's now in the Harvard School of Education. And we've worked a lot on dual language education in New Mexico. So he'll be talking to the students about his experiences, and they'll be, able to ask him about his perspective on education. In December, we'll be talking to a colleague in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil about alternative education projects in Brazil. In February, we'll be talking to a scholar in Mexico who looks a lot at the experiences of Mexican nationals who have grown up in the United States but have been kind of forced to go back to Mexico. And she looks a lot at some of the challenges they have around fitting in and academic language and things like that. We have Dr. Teresa Maitaku, who's one of my PhD students actually. She was, and she does really interesting work in feminist pedagogy in refugee contexts in Greece. So these are designed to be informal talks, but they allow you to directly immerse yourself in very different practices that are going on all around the world, and they'll continue on throughout the 4 years. And all of the kind of those dialogues and questions that arise from those conversations are going to feed into your portfolio and potentially your dissertation. So it's really interactive. And like I say, we do try to bring the wider world into the classroom as much as possible. Great. So this is just an overview again of the modules that are specific to the BEd International. So there's obviously the study abroad, which is the big one. You might have questions about where you can go for that study abroad experience. And we're very lucky to have a very dynamic international office, and we have a huge amount of international partnerships in Europe, in Australia, in the United States, in China. A lot of the information on those universities is available online, but I can also share the link with you, or if you have any questions about that, we can attend to them in the question and answer section. So there's comparative education 1 and 2, the international portfolio, and the dissertation. So that is what they're the kind of the additional, or that's the stream that you're going to be going in with this program. Okay, so just to give you a sense again of the opportunities that kind of emerge from a program like this. As I say, I think I, and maybe lots of other people, are an example of, well, we really kind of benefited with a program like this actually, but it obviously really does prepare you to go out and to teach in contexts that are not familiar, that might have very different cultures, very different expectations of what a teacher is and how, you know, this teacher-student relationship and things like that. So we're really going to try and give you the knowledge that prepares you to teach in a global context. There's a strong focus on, like I said, linguistically and culturally responsive education, and understanding concepts like diversity, inclusion, translanguaging, multilingualism, and, you know, what is it that we mean when we use those terms. And obviously, throughout the program, we're hoping that you will foster relationships with international communities of teachers, so that you're not teaching in an Irish vacuum. You're able to understand your own teaching practice in Ireland in relation to other practices internationally. So I think that's everything for me. There's a whole list of thank yous there, and I'm available after this session for any questions that you might have. So thank you very much. And I think I'm going to hand over now to my colleague, Claire.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Sarah. So just move on there with the slides. My name is Dr. Claire Griffin, and I'm Programme Leader of the Bachelor of Education in Education and Psychology programme. Like Sarah, I'm also a graduate of Mary Immaculate College. I was the first cohort who actually undertook this programme in education and psychology. This programme started in 2004, and I was one of the first students in that cohort. I'm delighted to be back now as programme leader. I went on after studying in education and psychology, working as a primary school teacher for a number of years, then moving into the whole area of special education and doing a lot of postgraduate study in the area of special education and in educational psychology. And now I'm back lecturing in Mary Immaculate College for the past 9 years, and I'm programme leader of this programme. So I'm very proud of the programme, and all of the lecturers and staff that work in Mary Immaculate College are equally as proud of the programme. It brings a different flavour to that of the Bachelor of Education, and I'm going to talk through that with you in terms of the differences. So I suppose moving on, in terms of this programme, it's a dual degree programme, so it's a level 8, and you're having a dual degree both in the professional qualification in primary school teaching, just like Dr. John O'Shea described at the start. We have that professional qualification, so you're qualified at the end of the time period of the 4 years to teach at all levels across the primary school sector, but you additionally have a level 8 degree and academic qualification in psychology. So this is the same level 8 degree that you would get equivalent in any of the other third level institutions in Ireland if you were to go and do a degree in psychology. So you're coming out at the end of this with an accredited level 8 degree from the Psychological Society of Ireland, which then allows you to go on and work or do postgraduate studies in the area of psychology. So it's a very unique programme where you end up with 2 degrees at the end of the 4 years, one in primary school teaching and the other in psychology. And as I said, both of those degrees accredited by the professional bodies, being the Teaching Council of Ireland and the Psychological Society of Ireland. So moving on then, we see the conceptual framework for the BEd in Psychology programme. And you see at the centre of this programme, it's equivalent to what Dr. John O'Shea described on the BEd programme. So we see those 4 years of the BEd programme, starting with, learner, moving on to teacher, researcher and leader. And you see that is at the core of the programme is the education element. Then you'll see in the grey squares around, or rectangles around the slide, you'll see all of the psychology modules that you undertake over the 4 years as well. So the psychology component of that degree is in parallel to the education component, so that at the end of the 4 years you're coming out with that dual degree. And you can see the range of psychology modules that you undertake, from introduction to psychology, developmental psychology, IT in psychology, and you also do an undergraduate dissertation in psychology in your final year, which I'll talk to you about, and lots of others, the biological basis of psychology, cognitive, social. So it's a really diverse psychology degree that gives you a flavour of psychology across all of those different modules, alongside then that core BEd degree that is going on in parallel. So moving on from that, just move to the next slide. We see that in terms of a class cohort, we have approximately 40 students per year group. And the kind of students who apply for this program generally are students who have an interest in psychology, who may have an interest in education, or may have a combined interest. Sometimes we have students who come to the program who may have always wanted to do primary school teaching, but may also have an interest in psychology, in understanding behaviour, maybe in understanding special educational needs more. So they decide, yes, I'd love to engage in work in education, but I'd also like to have this added component of a psychology degree. Sometimes we have the opposite, those who have always had an interest in psychology, but they're also interested in the educational component, with the idea that maybe eventually they'd like to marry both of them, such as through postgraduate studies in educational psychology. I guess it's important to highlight, and I'll be highlighting this again at the end, that you can engage in postgraduate studies in any field of psychology. So this degree in psychology that you undertake doesn't just, focus on educational psychology. You saw from the previous slide that all modules in psychology are undertaken because it is a general degree in psychology you're doing. So yes, it is very suitable for those who have an interest long-term in the area of educational psychology, but it doesn't just keep you into that, let's say, pigeonhole. You have plenty of other options as well in postgraduate studies in psychology if you wish to go down that line. The nice thing is, in terms of the class cohort, that you share some of your lectures with BEd students, because you saw there when we looked at the conceptual framework that a lot of your core programme is akin to the BEd programme. Some modules are different. It's not a direct carbon copy of the BEd programme. As I say, some modules are slightly different, but it's fully accredited by the Teaching Council of Ireland. So there's no fear about that. You also share your psychology lectures with the BA psychology students. So this goes from first year right through to fourth year. So again, this allows diversity in your class, where you're having some lectures with BEd students, some lectures with BA psychology students, and then there are also some modules and some tutorials that are just the 40 students of the BEd and psychology programme. So it's a really lovely blend of getting to know students from different cohorts, learning from your peers across those programmes, as well as having a very solid, smallish class grouping that are generally very collegial and very supportive and engage in that peer support across the 4 years of the programme. So moving on then, we see that a sample example of a semester. So you see here, this is year one, and this would be what our current first years are undertaking in this autumn semester. So you see in the kind of yellow slides, or the buff colour, you see all the education modules they're undertaking. So professional placement 1, language and literacy 1, an Gaeilge agus Múna na Gaeilge 1, STEM 1, so that's introduction to maths and its teaching, schools and society 1, which is a combination of history of education, philosophy of education and sociology of education. And then you have the psychology of learning and development, which is developmental psychology for the main part, looking from prenatal development right through to adolescence. So they're your main education modules, and if you're to look at them in comparison to the BEd programme, they're almost akin. There's 1 or 2 modules that are slightly different there, but as I said, it's accredited by the Teaching Council of Ireland, so there are some differences, but it's fully accredited. Then you see in the grey boxes that we have the 2 psychology modules that are undertaken in autumn of first year. So you have introduction to psychology and you have research methodology 1. So these are our first 2 main psychology modules in the arts side of the programme, let's say, and then in each semester we build on these psychology modules as well as building on our education modules. So moving on then, we see the programme structure. So we see there are 58 units of study across the 4 years. So that's 58 modules per se. So this spreads right across the programme and has a huge amount of diversity in the modules and in the programme of structure. So you have professional placement. So this would have been what Dr. John O'Shea and Dr. Sarah O'Brien talked about, those placements that you need to undertake to ensure that you qualify with your primary school degree at the end of it. We've a range of lectures across all of those modules you just saw. There are a number of projects and essays and assignments that you will undertake both individually and in groups. And then in your final year, you undertake an undergraduate dissertation in psychology. So this is an independent piece of research that you will undertake, and we're going to look at that in more detail in a minute. As we said, various modules across the 4 years focus on education, focus on psychology, and we also have a strong area of research methodology. So this prepares you both for undertaking that undergraduate dissertation in psychology in your final year, but it also prepares you for any postgraduate study you might wish to undertake after your 4-year undergraduate degree. So you have that very strong foundation in research methodology, which prepares you then for further studies if you so wish. In your final semester in the college as well, you get to undertake an elective in psychology. So this gives you choice in your psychology degree to choose an area maybe that stands out as particularly interesting for you. So we have a range of choices, and these vary from year to year to some degree. But to give you an example, we might have abnormal psychology, we might have areas like health psychology, or we might have the psychology of motivation. So students generally choose their elective in an area that interests them, and that can be a really exciting piece of study in your final semester as you're also undertaking your undergraduate dissertation in psychology. So let's move on and look a little bit more at that undergraduate dissertation in psychology. So how does it work? Well, this is very much a whistle-stop tour of what happens during that undergraduate dissertation, but you engage in group supervision. So generally students are in groups of about 5 or 6 students, and they are assigned a supervisor, and it's group supervision, which allows a lot of peer and collaborative support, but ultimately you're undertaking a piece of research in psychology independently. So you're in that group to offer the peer support with a supervisor offering that guidance, but you're undertaking that piece of research independently. And it's really lovely at the end of your 4 years because you're bringing together all the learning in psychology that you've had over your 4 years, and you're also bringing together all of the learning from your research methodology lectures. So it's a culmination of a lot of learning in that final semester. Within the college, we have a psychology technician, we have a range of psychology lecturers, and all of these lecturers will introduce you over your 4 years to different equipment within the college. So many of our students would use this equipment to support their research, such as the eye tracker technology, SuperLab software, PowerLab, use of blood pressure monitors, camcorders. So a lot of students come up with very innovative pieces of psychology research. Others then choose more desk-based research, and others choose applied research, maybe out in the field. So going out and maybe interviewing parents or teachers or professionals in an area, or often there's research done within classrooms. Obviously at the moment with current restrictions, the research for our current 4th years is more restricted than other years, but still students are coming up with really innovative ways of collecting data, such as using online methodologies, etc. So it's still really exciting research that our students undertake in this 4th year. As I said, there's a lot of applied and desk-based research, and we use statistical software like SPSS and qualitative data analysis clinics to support our students. So students not only have that group supervision, but they also have access to a lot of clinics to offer them support. So although you're doing it independently, you do have this underpinning thread of support from staff and from your peers throughout that final year. At the end of your 4th year, students have the opportunity then to present their undergraduate research at a range of different events, such as the Psychological Society of Ireland All-Ireland Student Congress, the annual All-Ireland Conference of Undergraduate Research, and the Mary Immaculate College Psych Fest, which is a mini conference that's held within the college to showcase all of the research that our students do, and it's generally showcased to staff as well as other undergraduate students, normally students on the BEd in Education and Psychology programme, or those studying psychology as part of the BA degree. So it's a really lovely way of showcasing all of your research at the end of the 4 years. So moving on then, we see that what else goes on in the programme other than, let's say, just that psychology component I talked about? Well, akin to the BEd programme, there is professional placement over our 4 years. So students undertake approximately 24 weeks of professional placement across the 4 years, including observation, teaching in classrooms and participating in school life. And this is akin to that undertaken on the BEd programme because it's accredited by the Teaching Council of Ireland. Students undertake 2 sets of Gaeltacht placement, each set being 2 weeks, and they also undertake applied placement. And what this involves is an opportunity to apply your knowledge of psychology to an educational environment other than a mainstream setting. So during that applied placement, it's a 2-week placement, and students often would go to a special class, for example, maybe a class that supports children with autism spectrum disorder. It could be to a special school, it could be to another alternative educational setting, maybe that supports children with psychological needs or with special educational needs. So there's a range of opportunities that are there, and we support students in thinking of these potential placements. And a lot of students would undertake their placements, this applied placement, near to home if there's a setting that they've always had an interest in, but maybe have never had an opportunity to cross the threshold of that environment. So it's a really lovely way of combining both your educational learning over your time in Mary Immaculate College along with that knowledge of psychology, and bringing both of those together to see an alternative placement for education and psychology. So then moving on, we see some of the achievements of the BEd psychology students. I said at the start of this mini presentation that we're extremely proud of the programme, and we're extremely proud of our BEd psychology graduates. We have had a huge amount of success from our graduates over the past number of years. Really, from the outset of this programme, our students have really shone both nationally and internationally, and you'll see both on this slide as well as on the next slide a range of achievements of our students. So for example, I said that many of them present at the PSI All-Ireland Student Congress, and you can see there in that first line the amount of winners we have had over recent years. We've actually won the top prize over the past 3 years in succession, as well as previous years. So this shows the high quality of undergraduate research that our students do, because they are going to that student congress and they are up against students from all other national universities in Ireland, and they showcase their research and they've won the top prize. We've had a range of students who are highly commended. We also, every year since 2014, have had a group of students who present at the PSI annual conference. So this is the conference that practitioners would go to. You'd have educational psychologists, you'd have sports psychologists, health psychologists, etc., going to this conference, and we've had a group of students from the BEd psychology programme presenting to these professionals. So it's a really, really important stage, but it also showcases the strength of our research. Again, we've had students winning the Global Undergraduate Awards competition. So this is literally a global essay writing competition, and they've had success across both psychology and education categories. We've had those winning prizes at the IATSE Special Education Conference. On the next slide, then, we've had a range of international and national conference presentations, a range of college-based awards, and then many of our students, when they finish the 4 years of the programme, decide that they're actually going to use their piece of undergraduate research to publish both in peer-reviewed journals or in professional practitioner magazines. And most of our education and our psychology staff within the college are very happy to support our students to do this if they've undertaken a really strong piece of research, because it's really positive to get that research out there, but it's also really positive because it allows it opens avenues for postgraduate studies for our students as well. It's a whole other dimension to your CV that can come from the 4 years of your studies. So then finally, to look at what happens when you qualify from this programme. So you can see it's quite an innovative, exciting programme with lots of opportunities across the 4 years. But when you finish the programme, what's ahead of you? Well, you can see on the left-hand side, what does the education degree give you? And akin to the BEd programme and the BEd International programme, you can undertake a career in primary school teaching. So this could be in the mainstream setting or in the special educational setting. You also have the opportunity to go on and do postgraduate study in education, just like Dr. John O'Shea talked about, and this can lead to careers in a whole host of areas, like leadership positions in education, be it principal, vice principal. It could be work with education support services. It could be third level lecturing. We have a lecturer within Mary Immaculate College who went through this route, or some people choose a route similar to education, such like play therapy. Because you also have a level 8 degree in psychology, you also have the opportunity to go on and do postgraduate study in psychology, and these can lead to careers in a range of different fields of psychology. So educational psychology obviously being one, but plenty of other areas, and any of the areas that I've listed there are examples of where graduates of our programme have gone on to work and study in those fields, be it developmental, neuropsychology, health, sports psychology, or research. And as I say, the beauty of this programme is it can very nicely marry both the education and the psychology elements in the areas of special educational needs or in the areas of educational psychology. So this is a kind of a whistle-stop tour of our 4-year programme, which combines both education and psychology and allows the graduate of this programme to take either path or ultimately to combine those paths. So that brings me to the end of the presentation.